First of all, I am going to focus on drawing the Little Red Riding Hood character. So it's obviously a very important detail, and I like to have it already in place. So when we start working on the wolf silhouette in the background, it's going to work well together, since her head is describing or showing the detail for the nose of the wolf. So this is a fairly simple illustration detail, but still I am going to apply a couple of interesting techniques here. First, I am going to start with the pen tool to draw the cape. Now for the cape, I am going to draw something very simple here, starting with a straight line coming up here. And at this point, I'm already going to apply a red stroke, just so we can see what we are doing. And then let me just come up here, click and drag, just like that. Come down on the side, click and drag, and then another straight line. And then to create these folds, or something that looks like folds on the cape, I'm going to draw a curved line, then click, and then go up a bit, then curve the other direction, click, come down a bit, curve the other direction again, click, go up, curve the other direction, click, go up a bit, curve the other direction, and then one more time, other direction. So as you can see, I created this alternating pattern, and it's going to make more sense once we turn this into a fill. So now that we have it set up as a fill, we can select it and switch to draw inside mode. So that way this shape turns into a clipping mask. But this time I'm going to use the pencil tool. So I have the white color selected for the stroke, and I'm just going to draw the lines here. So let's just draw up, first line, and the second one. Just going to redraw this. One more here, another one there, then one last one. Okay, yeah, that looks good. Let me turn off the sketch just so we can see better what we created. Now these lines should be perfectly aligned with those folds in the cape. So I'm going to make sure that's the case. I'm going to select them, and in this case, drag it here. That looks good. We have another one here. Again, we have to just make sure it's aligned. Looking good. That one's already good. And once again, we make sure this is aligned here. We can also adjust the direction handle just so it curves better. And then we can just align this one as well right there. Okay, so that is looking good. But let's select these again. So I'm just going to select all, that's Command A, then shift click on that square next to the clipping path, just so making sure that only these lines are selected. Or of course at this point we can also use the magic wand selection tool and just tap on these lines. That should only select them. And I want to change them from being uniform to probably use this width profile 5. So that just adds a little bit more interest to it. Or we could even try the width profile 4. That's probably even better. And since I was drawing them from bottom to top, this already works quite well. So it's like a transition from a thick line to a thin line in the end. We just have to make sure that they are aligned better. So like here, that's the better alignment. Again, this one should be a little bit more out there. And I feel like the rest is looking already good. Okay, so that's a nice little detail there. Now let's switch back to our sketch, and I'm going to turn off the draw inside mode. You can just do this by simply clicking somewhere outside or go back to normal mode. So draw normal, and then let's draw the hood. So for this one, again, I'm going to switch back to the pen tool, and I'm just going to draw a shape that I believe is going to work well for both the hood and the nose. So we have to remember that this acts as two different things here. So it serves two purposes. Both needs to look like the hood and also as the nose. I will set it to red fill and no stroke. So let's take a look at this. Yeah, I feel like it looks good. If we turn off the sketch, obviously that's not going to tell us much. But to be able to separate this better from the cape, we will also need some shading. And I think on the cape we could use some shading. And for this we are going to use an interesting technique. I like to use noise brush. For this particular illustration, that's the style that I would like to go for. And in the file that I created, you will already find this if you go to the brushes panel. But if you drag and drop this onto your artboard, you will see how it's been created. So it's a brush that just has simple little specks. They are irregular, so they are not round. They are all just irregular shapes, but they all are rounded down. There are some sharp corners in them, but generally they are more smooth. And there is also a randomness in how they are spread out, but generally there are more of these shapes towards the center of the brush, and then they start to disappear or be less dense towards the edges. So that is the brush preset, but if I double tap on the icon for it, we can also see the settings for it. So most important thing, that this brush was saved with a black color, and when the colorization is set to tints, that will allow us to apply any color on it, whatever we want to use with it. The settings that we will see here is that there is a maximum amount of randomness assigned to the rotation. So each time this is used on our brush strokes, there will be always a rotation applied. So that's going to create a really good randomness for these little specks. And we will be able to control the size and the spacing later on, but these are the default settings that I used. And I actually don't use any scattering on this, even though this is a scatter brush. So if I click OK, I can just demonstrate how this looks. If I use the brush tool and have that selected, I can just draw with whatever color I choose, and this is how it looks. So it's looking really interesting, and it's going to work really well for shading. Now, how will I use this for shading? Well, I'm going to go back to my original shape, the cape, have that selected and go back into draw inside mode. Then I use the brush tool, and I'm just going to use yellow for now, just so we can see how it looks. And as you can see, when I start applying these colors here, it's going to create that shading effect. So we are drawing inside and we can build this up really nicely. Now, here I actually would like to use a darker color. So I would like to create something like a shadow effect. So I'm going to add a new swatch, and this is going to be based on the red color that we had. So I'm just going to select that first, new swatch, and then set this to HSB, make it darker a bit, and maybe drag the hue value and the saturation value around as well. You can use the same settings, 860. And then with this selected, I'm just going to place that here on the left. I can start adding the shading and build it up. So I'm doing a couple of brush strokes. I'm concentrating the brush strokes closer to the hood, and then I can go maybe down as well on the sides a bit. So that creates a nice little effect. We can also maybe add a bit more at the bottom, like so.